You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So some of my listeners have reached out concerned that they are going to be the end of their family tree. No more of Johnsonburg or no more Giggly Goop family, whatever their last name is. I'm not going to identify them. But the thought of where it ends with you had kids, you thought that they would carry on the family name, and your kids don't want to have kids. What happens? And for those of you who are the last male in the family, or that could be a concern. And so it's interesting that this is a problem people are having. It used to not be a problem. I mean, some people would only have girls, and then the girls take on the husband's names, and then, it would happen. But for the most part, it was involuntary. And now there's this voluntary choice of, I'm not really into kids. I'm fine with that. I'm whatever. And so, parents are like, but, okay, having kids, there's a family name. What happens? Is a family name gone? And it's interesting because the family name, I come from a family that was, pretty dysfunctional, but I really did honor the name. Because my maiden name, Sodieru, which in English we kind of pronounce Zodiru, was held by individuals who escaped the Holocaust, who were in Dachau, and were managed to escape. Where it was when Dachau was just a work camp, and they were able to get out before it ended up being it wasn't an extermination camp, but they still killed prisoners there. If you were Jewish, and not prisoners by criminal, just, you were considered a prisoner based on your bloodline. And so, the Zodiru name is something that I'm very proud of. I didn't like it as a kid because I was always at the end. I was always last in line because it was Z-O. But, knowing how the family got it, and it wasn't my real family's name. I believe my real family's name was originally Rosenzweig. And when we had family that had to escape Russia during the turn of the 20th century and flee to Romania, my family got the name Sodieru in Romania because one of my family members worked with the police, was really good at foresight, solving crimes, so they kind of Zodiac type of thing. It was kind of a nickname, and then they took on the name Zodieru. Unfortunately, it still didn't protect anybody during the, then when the, Nazi regime came, when that family moved to Austria, they still had to flee because of, they would just, I don't know how they would, but they would, be searching and figuring out who had Jewish blood and then want to, slaughter them. So, my name to me is very, very important. And luckily, I have brothers. So the brothers are carry on the name. So I don't have to worry about the name going away. And then I got nephews and so, the name is going to continue. So I don't have that concern. And then for my husband's side, there's a lot of Waxes. So, so I couldn't imagine, somebody going, well, wait a second, but my name stops here. On the other end, you don't force anybody to have a kid. If they don't want to have a kid, they don't want to have a kid. And so one topic that comes up a lot, and we've talked about this before, is, I'll have people tell me that their child is marrying somebody who doesn't want to necessarily change their name. They want to keep that name, or they want to hyphenate the name. And we're seeing a lot of hyphenated names. And even though I was traditional, I wanted to just take on my husband's name. I didn't mind shedding the previous name. I was now his. And I had that more traditional aspect. I did have the conversation with him. And I said, look, if, however, there were no more Zodirus, if there weren't any brothers in the family and the name was going to stop with me, I would have kept it. Because otherwise, all those people died for nothing. All that whole line is gone. And my husband understood, but I didn't have to. I took on his name. But the idea of women and girls taking on the family's name, I think is absolutely fine because it is a part of the bloodline. And the reason why it's so important to people is, you could pass on furniture, you could pass on a token, a piece of jewelry, but a name can last 80, 90, 100. It could last centuries. I have nothing from my great great grandfather who fled from Russia to Romania. Nothing to remember him by or know him except the name. So so one suggestion I have is if you do have a child and all the pressure's on the boys to have kids and carry on the name, the daughters can carry on the name too. And I understand there's a lot of people traditional. I was traditional too. But if you're really worried about the name being lost, I mean, the mom's bloodline still counts. And so I understand that's how we followed the bloodline. It was always through the dad's side. But if you're that worried about the name being lost, you take what you could get. But, with children not wanting to have kids these days, it is interesting. To them, there's so many other practical issues. Carrying on the family name doesn't seem to hold as much value as I'm going to be broke. I don't have a job. I don't have a career. Even if I get a job in March, I could be out of that job by June. AI's coming. And so what I would do is if you have children and you're worried, okay, I may not get grandchildren or they may not want to carry, one is talk to them about, don't tell them you need to do it for me. I need to be a grandparent. No, don't be doing that. Don't make your kids do stuff for you. Okay, the guilt thing, it doesn't work and it's not right. But say, look, talk to me about what your concerns are. Because we might be able to work around that. We might be able to have a plan. You being a mom or dad is one of the most amazing things, and I don't want you to not be able to enjoy that. And so if you're worried about money and you're worried about babysitting and you're worried about, this is what we could plan out. But it's a growing concern, and I'm kind of shocked by how many people are worried about that. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, the Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So we talk a lot about, politics and news and the current events, because that's apparently what many of you are concerned about. And one of you reached out this weekend after Trump was pretty upset at SCOTUS for the whole tariff ruling, and you're pretty anxious about the election, and you're really, really anxious about what's going to happen with the midterms. And so for those people that are a little anxious now, because of what's happening, and, you're everywhere you go, you're now seeing political signs. And I mean, oh my gosh, it's another political year. Yeah, of course, it's going to be anxiety producing. And the reason why it's anxiety producing is you may feel one way. And when you hear somebody thinking that way is wrong and attacking that, it starts to make you unsettled. I get that people are on opposite sides of the aisle. I get that happens. But where I get nervous and I get a little anxious is like you're looking at the angel families, right? Where these people lost loved ones to horrible crimes caused by illegal immigrants. And why aren't we bipartisanly supporting them? Why aren't we bipartisanly being there for them and saying, look, we're going to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. And that if somebody has a criminal background, a rap sheet, they're not going to be on American soil. And it's just not. And so, yeah, for those of you going, I don't understand why, the people aren't thinking this way. In Canada and Mexico, they deport illegal immigrants, because that's what every other country they do. Yet in America, it's wrong to, according to a good number of the country. And so when you see that, you're like, well, what do I do? You also get anxious if you don't feel like somebody's going to listen to your argument. See, I love hearing from people on both sides of the aisle and hearing their arguments and that have common sense and logic. So I had a discussion with abortion with a doctor, and it was a really, really good conversation because, I was saying, look, rather than us go back and forth over Roe v. Wade, because I personally think that the decision to abort has to be between the mom, the father of the child, and the doctor. Okay, not the state legislature, not the neighbor whose tax dollars have to go to it. Not the, keep everybody out of it, keep our tax dollars out of it, keep whatever. This is between the doctor, the patient, and the father. And then if the doctor gets involved again, hopefully we're not having 1 million, women every year, because on average it's about a women. Sometimes it's 700,000, sometimes it's 1.2 million. But on average, we're having 1 million women each year faced with that trauma of, I need to end the pregnancy and end the life of a future child. And it's not an easy decision to make. So when I was talking to this doctor, I go, what I would like to address is the million number. Why can't we, help, future million women out by preventing unwanted pregnancies? I would like to, work on that. I would like to, Obamacare already, our tax dollars are going for free birth control. What are we missing? How come we have, 1 million unwanted pregnancies a year? Why don't we address that? And we were going back and forth, and, he was saying, well, it's like seatbelts. People have seatbelts, but they don't wear them, so we're still going to take care of them. And I go, look, we have to take care of individuals, if their life is at risk there. But, why isn't the country focusing on that? And we agreed that we're not doing a good job if 1 million women are contemplating ending their fetus's life because they got a pregnancy that they didn't want or plan for, then that's on us as society to do a better job of figuring out how to, increase access, I guess, to birth control or condom use or education or decrease rapes or incest or whatever is causing the million being done. I don't think there's, I don't think incest is a big portion of that, but then, these are things we need to look at. And so I love having conversations back and forth where it's like, well, what can we do, that's positive, and how can bipartisanly we work together? And so, it's stressful. So for those of you going, look, I'm not looking forward to this, and it's hard to hear people just completely, like voter ID. I just saw a report where I think Mondami required voter ID for their emergency snow shoveler program ahead of Sunday's winter storm. He said to register for an appointment, I guess you needed to have ID. Yet he is anti-ID for voting. When you see stuff like that, you're like, come on, man. So, of course, it's frustrating. But in terms of the, Trump, Trump is interesting because he doesn't hide behind an auto pen or whatever. I mean, he's pretty vocal. And I think he needs to be, less on social media. I don't think that's helping him. I think if you do have a message that you want to get out that you don't want truncated or shall we say, misplagiarized and miscopied, using social media to be able to say something is very valuable. That's why he started his own social media platform, Truth Social. But when you go off, yelling and some expletives and things like that, it can hurt. Is that going to affect the election? No, I don't. I mean, because the people that voted for him back in the 2024 election, many of them were not fans of his rhetoric and his social media postings, but they were fans of his policies. And so the tariff thing has been controversial for some because they were worried that prices would go up. For a lot of people, no, the prices didn't go up. The tariffs brought in money, and it prevented us from being screwed over by other countries. On the other end, was it within Trump's power? No. It was apparently to the Supreme Court. Trump's power was limited to only a certain amount of tariffs, and it has to come from Congress. So now it's up to Congress to see if they're going to pass something or not. But what Trump says on social media, I mean, if the Democrats are going to win in the next election, whether it has to do with voter ID or gerrymandering or people disliking, this last year of Trump's second term, it's going to happen. It's, Trump is, going to be very transparent in terms of how he feels. He's not going to give a political answer. He never has. And he has said things that make a lot of us go, he just said what? That's just his style. He's done it before, and it didn't stop him from getting elected. He doesn't have to run again. But in terms of Republicans, when people are going to the polls, they're not supposed to be voting for R or D. They're supposed to be voting if that person is going to represent their district, is that person going to represent their state? And so if the American people feel that their state is getting what they need in terms of farmer help and support for the farms, or security, or decrease crime, or if they feel they're going to be getting what they want, if a city doesn't want ICE and they want to vote against the congressperson because of ICE, they're going to do that. So I don't think I don't think what Trump says, but he's frustrated, that things he wants to do that avoids war, that avoids America getting screwed, and could be in the future something very beneficial, especially if we end up getting an external revenue service. I don't want companies feeling forced to pay America, but if we're paying more in tariffs than they are, if we're paying more for medications than they are for the same product, I think the America's done with being screwed over is appropriate. Now, and for him to air that frustration mirrors what a good part of the country feels. It's just politics is politics, and America is great in that we get to have multiple views and multiple parties, and we, aren't ruled by one party alone. That's what it makes America beautiful. But, if you are anxious, maybe turn off the TV once in a while, etc. But you have to understand that, it's always going to go back and forth. That's just how it works, unless somebody cheats and skews it where they could just always continue to win. And then that's not good either. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we're back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So we're being told that most flights are delayed or canceled out of NYC and Boston airports. This blizzard is bringing about 20 inches of snow to most parts of New York. They say there's going to be travel chaos sweeping the East Coast. Almost all flights in and out of New York City, Philly, and Boston were canceled this morning due to severe weather. Multiple states issuing states of emergency over the devastating storm. 9,000 flights across the nation canceled. And they believe that the area is going to be impacted for days. Daily Mail is reporting that the most disruptions include JFK and LaGuardia in New York, Newark in Jersey, Philly, Philadelphia, and then Reagan at Washington, D.C. They say the weather bomb is going to leave travel disrupted across the United States for a while. And then, of course, planes expecting the northeast, or shall we say flights expecting the northeast plane to come back to them, to their hub. That's going to then affect whether you're in Dallas or Atlanta or Vegas, LAX, etc. So officials are urging all travelers to check the flight to their status. Most airlines are offering waivers to rebook without penalty due to inclement weather. And apparently New York City airports had the highest number of cancellations, around 99% canceled, according to FlightAware. And forecasters warn that the storm is going to bring even more snowfall on Monday. And so snow totals in New York reach over 20 inches on Long Island. Central Park had 15 inches. In Newark, New Jersey, 18 inches. And snowfall rates forecast from 2 to 3 inches per hour. They believe the snow could reach historic levels. I know those who are saying that there's global warming and climate change are saying, well, this is all a part of it. But unfortunately, storms happen. And this is, whether it's due to your hamburger or your, not getting an electric vehicle is up to you to decide. But just understand that storms like this are pretty powerful, and don't feel guilty that, feel like you need to go run out and get an electric vehicle to prevent this. In fact, those people with electric vehicles are going to struggle to get their cars up and running. They say the previous record at Central Park was 27.5 inches, set on January 22nd to 24 in 2016. Other historic snow totals in the city include 26.9 inches in 2006, 26.4 inches in 1947, and 21 inches in 1888. So Zohran Mamdani has placed a travel ban on all residents in New York City, shut down all travel from New York City's roads and bridges until 9 a.m. Sunday, until 12 p.m. Monday. It's a snow day for all schools. placed the city under its first blizzard warning in over a decade. The subway lines appear to be running still, but there are delays. And as we said, for those individuals who wanted to help shovel snow, Mamdani, I guess, needs photo ID. So you could vote, but you can't help shovel snow. So make sure you have ID. So I know I'm just kind of confused by that. So be careful, bunker down. One thing we always get concerned about is carbon monoxide poisoning with power outages and with people trying to keep warm. Many will try to go to these little like gas heaters or these or try to use generators or use things that unfortunately might not have proper combustion. And if you aren't letting in air and because of the freezing cold, you could unfortunately have carbon monoxide buildup. So we want to make sure that you are, being careful with that. There's also been, unfortunately, we'll see fires in cases like this because people are trying to, warm up their house, and then unfortunately fires can ensue. I've never lived in New York City. I've been there multiple times, and I've always wanted to live there. But one thing that I think really kind of concerns me, having lived in apartments and dorms and always having to evacuate every time there was a fire, is in areas like that, somebody does something stupid in their house, it affects you. So carbon monoxide poisoning sends about 100,000 people to the emergency room every year, killing an average of 400 or 500 people annually. And what carbon monoxide does is carbon monoxide is two atoms, CO, carbon and oxygen. So carbon monoxide, as opposed to carbon dioxide, which is our respiratory byproduct, where it's carbon and two oxygens. Oxygen can't be itself. It has to be attached to something. So when you do have oxygen, it's O2. It's two oxygen atoms combined. Well, O2 looks very similar to carbon monoxide. So because oxygen can't exist as a stable single atom, blood cells have hemoglobin, which carries oxygen to the tissues. So it'll recognize the oxygen. But is that oxygen attached to another oxygen like it's supposed to for oxygen, or is it attached to carbon, making carbon monoxide? Hemoglobin can't tell the difference. So hemoglobin will pick up the carbon monoxide. The more carbon monoxide there is, the higher the concentration of that, the more the hemoglobin will consume or take on that. Then the carbon monoxide, the hemoglobin carries that carbon monoxide to the tissues and organs involving the heart and brain. They don't get then the oxygen. They're getting this carbon monoxide going, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? Then unfortunately, the organs become hypoxic and injured. Sometimes there may be no symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning at all, but you could get headaches, sore throat, cough, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, difficulty breathing, wheezing, dizziness, chest pain, cause you to faint, confusion, fatigue, weakness, blurred vision, could increase your heart rate because your heart is trying to pump to try to send more oxygen to the tissues. And sometimes we can recognize carbon monoxide poisoning because the lips are very cherry red in color. So we treat carbon monoxide poisoning with high oxygen. We need to displace the carbon monoxide off of that hemoglobin and have oxygen compete with it back again. So we may use pure 100% oxygen. We may put you under hyperbaric oxygen. In fact, they say 100% non-rebreather mask of oxygen can reduce the time from 300 minutes room air to 90 minutes. But 90 minutes is still too long for you not to get oxygen. Whereas the hyperbaric oxygen therapy can shorten that time from 32 minutes, according to Webscape. So where does carbon monoxide come from? Well, anything that burns. It's created during the incomplete combustion of fuels like wood, natural gas, coal, propane. If the air quality is poor, if the temperature is low, like during a cold snowstorm, carbon monoxide could get formed. Whereas if there was a complete combustion, you would get water and CO2, water and carbon dioxide. So tobacco smoke, fires, fireplaces, generators, water heaters, grills, clothes dryers, vehicles, landscape tools, wood stoves, gas stoves, furnaces, boilers, power tools can all make carbon monoxide. If you lose your power in the winter months or during a storm, you're trying to heat up without proper ventilation, you can be in trouble. So what I always recommend to everybody, whether you're in New York or not, right, we have these. Get a carbon monoxide monitor in your living space. Change out those batteries regularly. When you change out your fire alarm batteries, change out your carbon monoxide monitor batteries. You want to make sure this is working. If you're going to travel, take one with you. We hear every year somebody traveled somewhere, was at a hotel, died in their sleep because it turned out that there was carbon monoxide poisoning in the hotel room. So you want to carry a portable carbon monoxide monitor. Avoid fires and any of those sources of carbon monoxide within closed spaces. If you're going to have a furnace or you're going to have a space heater or something, put it near a window, crack open the window a little bit. You've got to make sure that you have aeration or ventilation. And then avoid running your car within closed spaces. You got to open the garage. See, I sometimes make the mistake of I pull into the garage, I close the garage door for safety, but I'm listening to the song. Now, luckily, the car I have now, I could shut off the car and the song goes on. But for those of you who are finishing out the song, no, open the garage or be out in the carport or something. You got to be careful. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
All right, we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We have a little bit of breaking news. Apparently, Nick Reiner, son of Rob and Michelle Reiner, has pleaded not guilty to murdering his parents. The 32-year-old appeared in a Los Angeles courtroom today. As you remember, after a Christmas party at Conan O'Brien's house, allegedly he killed both of them when they were in their bed in their Brentwood home, with multiple stab wounds. So prosecutors allege that he fatally stabbed his father and mother inside the bedroom, and then he fled. He, however, has pled not guilty. If we get any more information on that, we will. I mean, I'm sure he's going to try to plead insanity or something like that, but I think his defense attorney had to fire him. So but I think that had to do with finances, and the family wasn't going to support him anymore. But we'll keep you posted on that. Burnout is something that a lot of us face. And I teach and talk to a lot of doctors and students, and I talk to you all about burnout. And one issue with, burnout that I think a lot of us have is we gave up our youth and we work so hard, decades, that all of a sudden we become middle age and we're like, whoa, wait a second. I haven't done any of this. And I would work 100+ hour weeks, and it was, I rarely saw the family. And then, all of a sudden I wake up one day going, whoa, wait, that's not cool. And I loved patients, and I loved doing things for my patients, and I probably wouldn't do it again because I'm a workaholic. I probably would do it again because I'm a workaholic. But when you look at, some of the way some patients treated me, somebody grabbing, my boob and my butt, and I'm like, why did I give up my youth and do all that for them? I could have been enjoying life. I could have been, although the truth of the matter is, if I didn't go to school and I didn't become a doctor, I would be probably still struggling financially like I always was. And it's not like I would be able to go to Italy or Hawaii or anything like that either. So there's a reason why things happen. But we spoke a little bit about Olympic depression, because people look at these athletes and they go, well, gosh, I could have, probably done more from an athletic standpoint, but I gave up my sport, or I whatever. Or they look at Paris, or they look at Italy going, I've never been, and I want to go, and now I can't afford to go. And so, we spoke a little bit about that. And one of you had reached out saying, the closing ceremony was sad, but you weren't sad that the Olympics were over. You were sad because you love seeing Italy, and, you felt like you could be there even though you're never going to go. And I asked this person, I go, why are you struggling with something medical or whatever? They go, well, no, we just won't be able to afford to go. And I talked about this a little bit last week, and I talked about this during the Paris Olympics. I go, the big mistake I think people make is they think of a city where they want to go, and then they look up flights. They fall out of their chair when they see how expensive it is to fly to that city, and then they're like, well, this isn't going to work, and then they just give up, and they say it's not going to happen. And so I told you, one thing you need to kind of do is think a little laterally, and so let's say flying to Milan is expensive, but it's cheaper to fly to Rome, or it's cheaper to fly to another less popular area in Europe and then take a train. Those are possible. I mean, I can't believe I have conversations with my husband all the time. I wanted to see Portland, Maine and New Hampshire and drive through the, eastern seaboard. And we had a wedding in Boston. And he's like, okay, we'll find a flight out of Maine, or find out a flight. We'll make it work. And I'm like, Portland, Maine is an hour and a half drive from Boston. Why don't we just rent a car and drive? And it was actually cheaper to go in and out of Boston than to try to fly out of Portland, Maine, and then do layovers, etc. And so I'm big on taking trains or renting cars and then hitting everywhere we want to go. I know people think, well, doctors are rich. I had student loans, but not as many. I only had about $80,000 in student loans because I waited tables. So I supported myself and my family on the money from waiting tables because I had extended family that needed money. And then I just borrowed what I needed for school, but I was able to wait tables. I had no other way I was able to do it without working. But my husband had a couple $100,000 in student loans from chiropractic school. So we get out of school, we have loans. And then I, needed to immediately start my family because I didn't want the complications of being older and advanced maternal age. So I had my first kid when I was 28. And then the second kid when I was 30, and then trying to run an office and deal with babysitting and the student loans and all that. We never had time to put money away. We never had time to travel. We didn't. And then I figured out how to get us to travel by if I went to like a medical conference. If you go to a medical conference, and if you notice, most of my trips, I'm at a medical conference, and you're like, Do I work all the time? Well, when you go to a medical conference, it could be tax deductible, right? And then also, oftentimes these conferences give you, discounts on rooms, things like that. And I'm not saying everybody pretend to go to a medical conference. No, I mean, I if you're not a doctor, but there's workarounds. There's ways to do it. If you really want to see Milan, by the way, Milan is nice. I've never really been there, but I've driven near there because I drove up. I wanted to see Lake Como. It's expensive to go to Lake Como, but I was in another city and I decided to rent a car and then make the 4-hour drive up to Lake Como. It was beautiful. That's how I got to see Lake Como for a couple hours. And so there's ways to do things that are not as expensive. I'm really a big fan with credit card points. As long as you pay off your credit card at the end of each month, don't over spend on credit cards just to get points. It's not worth it. But if you are making a $25 purchase and you have cash or you have a credit card and you can make that $25 payment as soon as you get home, do that. And so try to rack up points, and those points can really help you save. Another thing is always never, plan a trip in a hurry. Always plan ahead and go, I'm going to check the flights. So what if I leave on a Tuesday instead of a Saturday? Sometimes flying on a Tuesday is way cheaper than a Saturday. And so there's ways you could work that in terms of time off. You could work with your employer and on, look, I want to take some time off, but I don't want to lose, I want to use my PTO, but I don't want to take off during the holidays. I know everybody uses their PTO during the holidays, but I'd rather work because I'd rather use my PTO for a trip. Work with your employer. And then, if you really do need money, and this is something you've always wanted to do and it's on your bucket list, as I said last week, one really great way to make money is a yard sale. I think yard sales are fantastic. We have so much crap and stuff we bought that never used. Why? Because we went to Walmart or Target. We bought it still in their package. I have stuff still in their package. Well, then why don't I sell it? And then, you could get, if you want it to be a really lucrative, a really good yard sale, get your neighborhood involved. Say, hey guys, I got a lot of stuff I want to sell and unload. I donated a bunch of stuff, but I could use money because I'm trying to, come up with a family vacation. Would you guys mind doing a yard sale with us? Yeah, and then, obviously we split the money or split the proceeds or whatever. I think also crowdfunding is fantastic. You could tell people, look, I don't want anything for my birthday. I don't want anything for anniversary. I don't want anything for Christmas. But this is what I want to do in the summer. And so do you guys mind for, my Christmas present or whatever you guys are doing, and even crowdfunding? Say, look, I know you guys all have a lot going on. This is something I want to try and do. You'd be amazed at how many people might want to give $20, $25, whatever, just so you could be able to enjoy that trip. So, but like I said, it's not impossible. It really isn't. And then also sometimes your church might go, and want to go and, see the Pope or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways to get where you need to be. Don't be upset about it. It's doable. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.